Hello, my name is Paul Healy. This presentation is titled Credence within the Dialectic. This presentation is a proposal to strengthen Thomas Hill Green's critique of David Hume. Its two principles, given they constitute the customs of our beliefs for all our reasonings. This will also undermine Lewis's proposal for credence. It will be demonstrated that the reasoning and inference deduced from contingent and possible sensations are subsumed by what is necessary for their dialectic. Its principle, as a contribution to Aristotle's metaphysics, will be grounded on the relation and limits of oppositions. If Aristotle is wrong about reason, why would Hume have a better knowledge of inference than Green? It could just be that there are more within the academic world that have a greater degree of belief in Hume's knowledge of reasoning and inference. Consider that which could be construed as the source of beliefs in credence being the degrees of it. Now, potentialities with reasons are in every case the same as potentiality of the opposite, whereas the potentialities without reason, each potentiality is the potentiality of a single thing only. That's from Aristotle's Metaphysics. And even though potentiality has been translated as capacity, if Aristotle didn't make a mistake, he still presented the case for his reasoning in at least on interpretation, the prior and the post-prior analytics and the topics. Today, with skills in IT, our analysis of his reasoning can be considered with far more precision. Algorithms can even have the property of their initial values being indeterminate, so the potential value of their variables are equal. Green writes in relation to where the error of ancient philosophy lay. From a reason you can infer a consequence, from a cause you cannot infer the effect. If one phenomenon has always been found to be followed by another, you will expect upon its occurrence that the usual sequence will follow, and only then in that sense do you infer the effect from the cause. For Hume's two principles, that there is nothing in any object considered in itself which can afford us to reason for drawing a conclusion beyond it, and that even after the observation of the frequent or constant conjunction of objects, we have no reason to draw any inference concerning any object beyond those which we have had experience. It is not phenomena, but just objects that are referred to. Those objects could be humans, so it's conceivable that a principle could be defined in opposition to Hume's understanding of reason and inference. You can only imagine Hume and Lewis's bewilderment to such a response. But if Green's acquaintance with Hume is a real possibility, Hume's reply might be something like the following. And what stronger instance can be produced of the surprising ignorance and weakness of the understanding than the present? For surely if there is any relation among objects which imports us to know perfectly, it is that of cause and effect. On this are formed all our reasonings concern matter of fact or existence. Green might have replied, but such reason has nothing to do with matters of fact. It merely deals with nominal essences. And further, he might have added that a species of sensation leaves no part of our natures to be cognitive, but only an internal impression, being a propensity which custom produces. For Hume, the idea of their necessary connection is a copy, whereas for Green, resemblance for all cases and the particular case of their identity respects the conditions of the inference. The uniformity of expectation is only intelligible if there are no gaps between the states of their properties being. Credence allows for it to be otherwise. Applying Lewis's idea of being for the degrees of belief, let's say you assume your degree is 55% and the chance that Hume's inference is sound is 80%. Your degree of belief is 29% and the chance that Aristotle's inference is sound is 50%. And your degree of belief is 16% that the chance of Green's is sound is 25%. Multiplying each of the double degrees gives Hume 44%, Aristotle 14.5% and Green 4%. Even taking Aristotle and Green's together, your credence in Hume is greater by 25.5%. Given this is a rational way of calculating chance that is not merely nominal, Lewis's first principle can be counted. The evidence, if it trumps the forms of inference that are in opposition to it, with a lie detector test, it would still be a matter of opinion, not of fact. Also, consider the disposition of individuals in a large sample. Do the outcomes correspond to the way chances are actually calculated, or is it just the influence of their conditioning to belief that their subjectivity has no bias? If there is a superior way of calculating the value of their credence in the calculation of chance, there must be firmer foundation to what can be inferred from the reasons for their calculation. Even Bayes' theorem can be accommodated to differentiate between individual and group decisions. But is there not still an abduction of credence taking place? If contradictions are determined by the presupposition of consistency in respect to the belief of chances, sound inference has nothing to do with the unity of their relations to matters of fact. Now imagine a world not too dissimilar or similar to ours, where Aristotle, Hume and Green were all women. Does credence provide evidence for the validity of its causes? No. Even a lie detector test or a crystal ball does not provide evidence of that. Lewis, Beebe and McBride could argue, if possibilities are real, so too are the similar and dissimilar counterfactual conditions. The problem is, if they are true for all reasoning, the inference from the known to the unknown negates the capacity for the potential to make effective decisions. As a basis for chance, there is a clear opposition to the former inference for contradictions. Hence Lewis's big bad bug is not chance, but its credence within the dialectic. Being two-way for Aristotle's reasoning means you can have credence in contrary and subcontrary chances. That is, contrary and subcontrary reasoning that allows for the conditions of that which can be inferred in opposition to counterfactuals. All or some are not counterfactuals. The dialectic of their credence is therefore necessary to even propose them in the first place. Hall, in response to Lewis's old and new principles, also introduced some doubt about their value. The first leads to a contradiction. For Lewis's credence, the future, given the history for the theory of chance, theory, equals 0. By probability theory, for the histories of the theory of chance, is not equal to 0. While he claims in his second, Lewis's has a dialectical edge over the non-reductionist. If I understand Lewis and Hall correctly, both suffer from the charge of nominal essences. What if the consequence of the second is complex, as in the credence function for your proposition, given the history for the theories of chance, equals a rational plus an imaginary irrational. There you kind of combined this nominal essence with a rational. Well, it's not, it's an imaginary number, but what does that mean? The demonstration of a proof that credence does constitute the basis of such a consequences is just the effect of the credence in indeterminate causes. Why should there be any doubt that within the dialectic there exist theories of chance that can be counted and supersede or supervene those that depend on Hume's inference? Physicists model alternative histories of the cosmos. And this is a footnote. Concerning the number of principles required to explain the nature of things, Aristotle finds that there must be three, two of which are Heraclean pairs of opposites, and the third, the substratum, which is in the metaphysics. Change is for him a change in the attributes attributed to one substance. Something changeless must underlie all change. That are not created by any credence. Okay. But this does not contradict their stronger or weaker beliefs in a selection of its theories. Neither should there be any doubt there can be a measure that and predict the properties of phenomena to very high levels of accuracy. The qualities and inequalities of the equations do not depend on credence. Credence is not that which constitutes the basis of their inference. No doubt the faith in Hume's belief that, and that of Lewis's credence, can inspire the researcher to look for and select those outcomes which appear favourable to it. With no opposition clearly set out to Hume's principles and Lewis's attempt to strengthen them, no demonstration falsifying the dialectic principle can be given. In fact, grounding futures on credence involves their inadmissibility. A better contender for the principle that subsumes Hume's and Lewis's is one given a manifold n of oppositions for the relations and limits of any credence, C, in them has a value V determined by their dialectic D. This principle, if there is to be one, must let the calculus of chances constitute the basis of sound inference. The proposal for the strengthening of Green's critique of Hume and Lewis can therefore be presented. As a dialectic principle, the credence given the manifold of oppositions equals the value of the credence. The demonstration for the strengthening, if in fact can be proven, rests on real possibilities, being the potential for the method of calculating chances. Their relation to the reasons for the experience of making decisions, the facts of calculating chances, do not undermine their consequences. The confidence in different chance functions as opposed to the significance of their overall capacity of their program is determined by their range for making successful predictions. The frequencies of alternate possibilities undermine the mere credence in them. Those that are not just determined in a combinatorial arrangement as if anything goes, but for the scientific analysis can be ranked higher by the relative and dual properties of spatio-temporal masses and their vectors. Just fixing the parameters for the combinatorial proportions of frequencies only describes one type of disposition. Many others, some unknown, and even some inaccessible to human cognition, form the basis of its program. Arbitrarily speculating about credence, as Lewis' thesis does, leaves, if believed as absolute, leaves us none the wiser. The intelligence of cognitive beings should be given more credit, especially given the specialist skills required for the knowledge of each subject to make effective decisions. Philosophy should be no exception. Green's defence of our cognitive nature therefore holds. It is not a cause or effect of one, but the consequence of process whose conditions are the interdependent substance of our dispositions. Of course, if the states of affairs are preferred to what constitutes the states of actual properties, we'll be stuck with Lewis's credence. Not being stuck with it simply means the dialectic for the calculus chance constitutes the basis of inference. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Any comments, critical or otherwise, much appreciated.